Hi everyone. Today we are making avocado toast. This will be the first painting in the food illustration series in which I'll make different food-related paintings in alphabetic order. So let's get started. The sketch is pretty simple. First, draw a circle for the plate. Then make slightly irregular ovals to represent the bread. Now make the crust. Then for the mashed avocados, make irregular outline on the bread. And to make the boiled eggs, make ovals, and then make the circular yolk in them. With our sketch complete, let's jump straight into painting. Begin by applying a light wash of alizarin crimson to the plate. Since I'm aiming for a light pink, I'm using diluted paint here. But feel free to go darker if you prefer, or simply keep the plate white and paint the surrounding background. After this paint dries completely, use light mixture of yellow ochre to paint the bread. Apply it on the entire bread, making sure to avoid the mashed avocado. And while the paint is still wet, add a mixture of yellow ochre and burnt sienna in the crust. Notice I'm leaving a few spots unpainted. These will be our initial highlights. For this layer, I've focused the darker color mainly on the lower section of the bread, and we'll build on this once it dries, as you'll see later in this video. Now, apply the same technique to this piece. Begin with a light wash on the bread, carefully working around the avocado, and then deepen the color in the crust. First, let this dry completely. Then we'll paint a base layer for our avocado using light sap green. Make sure not to paint the eggs, otherwise you'll have to do white paint on them later. Just carefully do a light wash around them. Now, to build depth, add more pigment for shadows near the eggs. I'm doing this while the paint is still damp for a soft and natural transition. While that's drying, add more burnt sienna to your mixture used to paint the crust and apply it to this bottom section, remembering to preserve some highlights. Then paint an outline around the bread like this. I felt the bread color was a bit too light, so I'm now applying more yellow ochre here. And I'm doing this after the green paint has dried, otherwise the colors might mix and cause an undesirable muddy mess. For the base of the yolk, use cadmium yellow, and while it's still damp, dab in some cadmium orange in a few spots. I'm putting this orange where the color would naturally be a bit deeper, like where the yolk slightly curves or gets less light. I just love how these yolks instantly brighten up the whole painting. It really makes everything suddenly pop and look completely different, adding a little bit of warm color to the painting. I'm keeping these yolks a bit orange as I want them to look like soft-boiled eggs, but if you want to paint hard-boiled ones, you can use lemon yellow or cadmium yellow pale. Experiment with these different yellows to see which one you like the most. And speaking of preferences, I'd love to hear which kind of boiled eggs you prefer eating. Do let me know in the comments section below. Now take a little bit darker sap green and create texture in the avocado. Add darker green to represent shadows. Think about how mashed avocado isn't perfectly smooth. It has some variations. Add some irregular patterns to represent shadows and texture. As I work on it, I'm still trying to keep the areas right around the eggs a bit darker than the rest of the avocado. This really helps the eggs pop forward and look three-dimensional. Now mix just a tiny bit of cadmium red into that darker crust paint. This is going to help us add even more depth to the crust. Focus on those areas that would be a little bit more toasted. Just remember, layering is super important here. By adding more paint, we are building on the previous layers, and by letting those colors underneath peek through, we make nice highlights. Now for those deep, rich shadows on the avocado, we're taking our sap green again, and this time we're going to add a touch of Hooker's green and just a tiny bit of Payne's gray. Before doing this, I've waited for the previous layer to dry. This is important as it will help us to make a nice, defined texture. Now I'm going to make air pockets in the bread. Mix Payne's gray with burnt sienna and make their outline, then take a tiny bit of water and pull the paint to make the holes darker in some areas and lighter in others. I'm adding more yellow ochre to the bread to make it a bit darker. Now, with the same color, I'm going to add a shadow here. In order to add more depth, I'm going to darken the crust outline. Make sure the shadow color has dried first. Now I will add some soft shadows here as well. You can use a clean, damp brush to soften them up. Now let's add another layer on the plate. Mix Payne's Gray and alizarin crimson, and make an outline around the rim. This will act as a guide while making the shadow encircle. While painting it, I'm thinking about our light source, which is coming from the top right. This means the inside of the plate, particularly on that top right side, would naturally be a bit darker, catching less light. So I'm making it darker there and gradually lightening it as I move towards the bottom left side of the plate. I'm adding a line along the rim of the plate with metallic gold paint. I still had some of the paint left on my brush, which I didn't want to waste, so I'm using it to make another line. Finally, we'll make some shadows with a light mix of Payne's gray. First up, I'll add some soft shadows on the eggs, where they're overlapping. These tiny details instantly make the eggs feel more three-dimensional. Next, we'll paint the shadow for the toasts. And finally, we'll create the shadow of the plate itself. This is the shadow the plate casts onto the surface beneath it. Let these shadows dry completely, and then darken them up near the edge of the toast and plate respectively. Thanks for watching. See you next time. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this.